Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad and The Odd with your hosts Mark and Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hey.
Right, so episode 537. Time marches on, doesn't it? Now, I'm not going to do the blurb that I used to do because it's at the end credits, so you can go and listen to it there. You go and listen to it there. But you may have noticed we've got had some new intro music there. This is to sort of herald our a new phase of a new block of movies we're going to be starting. You know how we do occasional stuff like Kaiju and this, that and the other. Bond we've been doing lately, haven't they? But this one is our first in our fairly long series, I reckon it'll be, of Hammer movies. So there was that's the reason for the new music. So whenever we do a Hammer movie, we'll be having that sort of starting music. Okay, I'm really keen to get on to talking about our first sort of Hammer offering, which is Quatermass Xperiment. But let's pull up the comfy chair first.
Get the comfy chair!
Okay, how many have you got, Sam?
I have 3.
Yeah, I got 3 too. Do you want to start?
Okay. Now, I've been watching a new anime by the animation company Trigger, who do really good animation. They were the people that did, before they split from like a parent company, they were the people that did Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, which we watched.
Yeah, we watched Gurren Lagann.
As well as Kill la Kill and Little Witch Academia, which I've talked about.
Yeah, I remember you talking about Kill la Kill. I don't remember Little Witch Academia. Was that recent?
Yeah, fairly recent.
Yeah.
It's basically Harry Potter. So, yeah. But Darling in the Franxx is their new show, and it goes more with the old trend of here's this like anime trope, and here's how it would more realistically affect people.
So they're trying to do anime realistically, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like they have the fantastic element, and this is how the fantastic element would actually more realistically affect someone. It's not all. It's in this case, it's giant mecha.
Okay,
but it's not all like wide-eyed sort of enthusiasm, just beating up monsters. There's a lot of like, okay, these kids are messed up,
right?
Like really deeply messed up because they're like child soldiers essentially, fighting animals. So they're not well in the head, and it's very clear from the get-go that is what's going on.
I'm just checking the wiki, and it says it only started on the 13th of January, so it hasn't been going long.
No, it's only at 3 episodes so far.
Oh, okay, so you're into the first 3, but it's going to be 24, so you've got a fair few to run.
Yeah, so far it's really good. There is some weird, like, especially since the kids are supposed to be like low teens, there is a lot of weird like sexual stuff.
Oh my!
But I think that might
be Japanese.
Yeah, but some of it's like you sort of stuff, like you crazy Japanese sort of thing. But some of it's like this is actually deeply sort of psychologically in their head. It's like part of them.
Yeah. Like,
there's a character that has, like, a superiority complex, and that really comes through. Okay. It's like, ugh. You do feel skeevy after watching it sometimes.
Okay.
But it's like, yeah. It's a good show. Watch it.
Yeah. Okay. I actually, you know what? I've just realised there's one other one I wanted to mention really briefly because I only want to talk about it fully once this season's finished. But I am watching at the minute Star Trek Discovery. And whoa, it's crazy. It's really crazy, but really good. They're definitely not trying to settle into a stride. They're throwing new stuff every week, and it's properly mad. And I could definitely recommend it. I think it's really good. It's not like it's Star Trek, but not as you know it, right? That's really what it is. It's properly mad. It's almost like, let's put it this way. I don't know if this is giving too much away. It's a bit like, you know how The Last Jedi subverts quite a lot of Star Wars stuff in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
Well, Star Trek Discovery's kind of doing the same thing about Star Trek. So it's a very interesting. I mean, I like the first half because it did like a mid-season. You know, it's doing a season in 2 halves, and the first 10 were pretty good. I quite enjoyed it, and it looked like at the end of that mid-run season, episode 10, it was like, wow, they've gone into a whole new thing here, and they're going to be exploring that, but. Man, they haven't rested on the laurels with this. It's properly crazy, so I definitely recommend it. Anyway, I kind of didn't want to talk that much about it, but I will do once the season ends. It was very enjoyable. Anyway, the first one I want to talk about is I watched the sequel to The Kingsman, Kingsman Golden Circle. Have you seen The Kingsman?
Nope.
Okay, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun because it's basically you know Austin Powers kind of drove James Bond and that into being super serious. You know they couldn't do fun James Bond anymore because Austin Powers just ripped the piss out of it so much. They just couldn't go there, and it's been a long time for that kind of fun spy stuff to kind of return, and it's kind of returned in probably the Kingsman and Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie, right? Okay. Anyway, the Kingsman. The Golden Circle kind of continues with that trend. You know, it's a goofier sequel. I prefer the first one still because I think the first one had a really interesting sort of element of a character growing into the role that I found rather good. Whereas this one is kind of that character just doing spy stuff. There's a bit of development still, but not the same. But there is a very funny bit in it where Elton John turns up in like the evil villain's lair because that villain likes Elton John and likes kidnap Elton John, so he has to play gigs and stuff. And it's kind of funny, and he's in proper Elton John. He looks like Elton John in, you know, that weird outfit he wore in the Muppet Show where it's like all feathers and weird hat and stuff. He's wearing that basically.
Okay.
And he can't act, but it is kind of funny because it's Elton John being angry at stuff, so that was fun. But the rest of it's is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's proper goofy. It was way longer than I would expect, you know, and a film like this you'd think 100 minutes, but it was over 2 hours. But it filled the time well, and I wasn't like, oh man, they should have trimmed this and Julianne Moore's in it as the villain, and she's really good. She's properly, you know, got a screw loose kind of villain, and I kind of appreciated that. So it was fun though. You know, I'd give it 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it quite a lot, but I prefer the original a little. Anyway, back to you.
Okay, so the next thing I've been watching is it's a sequel to an older anime, but it's like the new series. It's called Overlord 2. Now, Overlord was the sort of misadventures of this guy who accidentally got sucked into his like MMO game where he was like ruling as a villain, basically. So he had to play the part of being a villain while all these crazy evil people were doing what they did around him.
Just to be clear, this isn't a game. We're talking about an anime.
No, this is an anime.
Right, because there is a game called Overlord.
Yeah, there's a game called Overlord 2.
Oh my goodness.
There's a series. Just search Overlord and it should come up.
Okay.
It's a thing with anime sometimes where like second series will just be called like series title 2.
Yeah.
But it's just Overlord. Okay. So you can probably find it. It's just a dude with a massive skull head. So.
Talking of, I'm sorry going off the point here, but talking of sort of anime sequels, isn't One Punch Man's second season out
Yeah,
soon?
that should be out this year.
Oh, so we definitely got to cover that.
Okay.
One Punch Man's easily my favourite anime series now. I just really loved it. I really loved it. I mean, I really like Afro Samurai, but I like One Punch Man better.
I need to see if I can find some anime that you might like.
Yeah, some of it. I'm very patchy on what I like. And
I really thought you'd like that JoJo stuff.
It was all right. Just it didn't really appeal to me in the way that One Punch Man's just. There's something about it that spoke to me. You know, I really
I like the
appreciate
second JoJo because that's a lot more campy and goofy, and there's like Nazis and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, Overlord is the continuing misadventures of this guy as he leads this evil faction, mostly trying to convince them that he is who he is, and well, he is the Overlord Ainz Al Ghul of Nazarick, which is the place where they've set up.
Okay.
And it's him trying to avoid and perpetually like mucking it up somehow. I'm making it sound like a comedy. It is in part an action show.
Okay.
He does occasionally throw down, and when he does, he does have like the full magic power of a Sauron alike.
Okay.
So he is pretty powerful, and it's a pretty fun show.
It's weird he's Sauron alike because it isn't like the game also a bit Sauron like, you know, the piece of game.
No, I'm just saying like in terms of power that he can throw about.
Okay.
He can like will dragons into existence, that sort of thing.
Nice. It's all right for some. Okay, that sounds kind of fun. Yeah, cool. My next one is I'm going to talk about TV show. I've got around to watching season 1 of Agent Carter. Peggy Carter. Really good. It's I thought it was going to be, in terms of like its pitching to what sort of audience was. I assumed it was going to be a bit like Flash or Supergirl, you know, more like the 10 to 12-year-olds. But it was quite a bit more violent than that. I was quite surprised. It wasn't Daredevil levels of violence, but it was. There was like, you know, stabbings and stuff like that. I'd say slightly older than like the Flash. And Hayley Atwell was really good, and it was really well written. It was set in the 40s, so it's got a really nice vibe, and the music's really cool. We get Stark turn up, not Tony Stark, his dad Howard Stark, and we also meet his butler Jarvis, who's like becomes Peggy's assistant or help, and it's got this really nice vibe that Peggy's stuck in this as an agent in this sort of special ops thing. But no one, because she's a woman, they kind of don't give her any missions. That she's like responsible for getting the sandwich round in for lunch, and I won't give her any work, and like she's not listened to. And in a way, some of the agents make snide remarks about her. Yeah, you were just because you were Captain America's girlfriend. That's the only reason you're here. And even the chief's kind of, well, she's dumped in my lap because she was Captain America's girlfriend. I can't really use her, but she can't really shine. But it turns out she kind of runs a parallel investigation while those guys are investigating stuff. And eventually kind of, you know, qualities emerge to everyone rather than just doing her own stuff. But it's well made. I'd recommend it. I mean, I don't know if it's on a streaming thing. It was on Sky, and it still is.
I think episodes. It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay.
I'm not 100% certain though.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. I'd say it was a pretty good Marvel TV show. It kept my attention more than, say, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did, and it's got a much more straight, because you're focused on one person, Peggy Carter, and she's not a superhero or anything. She's just really effective. Though she can really kick ass when she has to. But she has to deal with all sorts of people in this, sort of nasty villains and stuff. And I kind of like it. And she also does disguises and all this, that, and the other. So it's kind of fun. And she's got this posh butler in tow, sort of helping her. It's kind of funny, too.
I remember trying to watch a couple. I watched like the first couple of episodes of it. Yeah, and it just seemed like it went a bit too heavy with the a woman doing all the work sort of thing.
Yeah, there is that emphasis, but I mean, it does go.
And admittedly, yes, it's the 50s, but not only did she have Captain, I can almost believe it if they brushed it off just because she's Captain America's girlfriend. But she had Tommy Lee Jones to like back her up.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean about the sort of messaging. It is heavy there, but it is the 40s, and these guys have just come back from war, and they're used to like working with men. Do you know what I mean? So I can kind of see it, but I appreciate the heavy message. But I think it's a message worth putting in. You know, that women were treated like that at that time in a kind of man's world, and it didn't stop for some decades, you know, and in some domains it still happens. But yeah, I take your point. But having said that, the rest of it I think works really well, and I thought it was very enjoyable actually.
Yeah. Maybe I should give it another try.
And the clothes and the cars and the music's really cool. There's some really cool music, and you know, she eats in a diner and it looks really cool and stuff like that. So I kind of liked all that. I mean, you'd probably like some of the music because it's the sort of music they have in Fallout.
Yeah.
It's that kind of music, so it's kind of cool. Anyway,
Okay.
back to you.
Okay, my last thing is I've got the brand new game Monster Hunter World.
What's that on PC?
It's on PC. It's on Xbox One. It's on PS4. I've got it on PS4 because that's the one all my friends have got it on too.
Is that tend to be a multiplayer kind of game?
No, you can play it perfectly single player entirely.
Tell me about it, because you got my interest.
It's
a platform I actually have.
Yeah, it is almost exactly what it says on the title. You hunt monsters. You get to pick like your massive oversized weapon and go around beating up dragons and dinosaurs and that sort of thing. So you can make bigger and better weapons so you can beat up bigger and badder dragons and dinosaurs.
Right.
I think you'd like it because it's very like you can just like pick up, play it for like 15 minutes and be done.
So what's it called again? I'm just googling it. Monster Hunter
World. Yeah. The premise of this is part of a fairly long series now. Your characters are going to the new world to chase elder dragons to find out why they go to the new world.
Right.
So yeah, that's the driving plot force, and you get up to some stuff.
Okay, so it's hunting, right? But is it got a wider arc story? Is it just hunting different animals and that's it?
It's mostly hunting animals. There is a story, though.
Oh, there's going to be some butthurt people about this game. I could just see it right now.
Why?
Well,
it's like
hunting animals. Ooh.
Oh no, it's been doing this for years. It's like literally the same thing. It's almost literally the same thing since like 2000, since like PS2 era. So yeah, it's a fun game, but I had it on I had some of the older games on 3DS, and I just couldn't get into it on that. But with this, I've like gone full on ahead. I'm like in.
I might check out some online playthrough and see what it looks like.
I'll send you a video because you might like it because there's a lot of like this one's a bit more investigation.
Yeah.
Like you need to find tracks and like evidence of monsters and like follow them down.
Yeah, not sure.
This is the game where they introduced lots of monsters on the map as well as an open map. Yeah. Because in the older games it's like little segments and there's like a loading screen between them. Yeah. But in this it's all open world and the monsters will just roam and attack the hell out of each other.
It's not all right.
It's not. It doesn't sound as exciting as it actually is, but you will understand excitement when you're just running through the forest and a T-Rex sticks its head out from between two trees, and you just have to freeze and like dive into a bush to try and avoid it.
Nice.
So
those are the sorts of so we're talking dinosaurs and all sorts.
Dinosaurs, dragons. There's a few like weird ones. Like there's this big like electric flying squirrel thing, and there's a mouse that can float like a balloon sort of thing. It's weird.
Is the rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, right?
You say that. There is like just a horse. Okay. But it's called the Kirin, and it will kick your ass. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the graphics. There's like weird giant lizards and all sorts. Yeah. Right? They look something a bit out of Flash Gordon, in fact.
Yeah, some of them do.
Okay, that sounds cool. Right, my next one is I'm actually going to be on another podcast talking about this film. Probably out a few days after this one comes out. So I'm going to talk about it much more on that podcast, but I'll talk about this one on here. This is on Netflix. It's a horror film on Netflix called The Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's a film that came out in 2016. It's set in America, but it was actually filmed in England, in Kent, funnily enough. And it is American. Brian Cox is in it. The Scottish actor who's you probably know him best from X2, the X-Men 2 film, maybe. Okay. As the general, whatever it was, the bloke behind it.
Bloody hell.
He's been in lots of things. Brian Cox. He played Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter. as well.
Okay.
Anyway, it's basically a father and son pathology team, like autopsy team, who they get this mysterious dead woman in who's got no signs of any kind of trauma, so they don't know why she's died. So they start the autopsy and they start discovering things about her. For example, there's quite a lot of severe internal damage, but she's not showing that damage on the outside, even though it's on the inside. So what on earth causes that? And the suspense builds. And it's kind of an old-fashioned horror film, you know? It's suspense building. It's using lighting and slow, lingering shots through corridors and stuff like that. And there's some common horror tropes like, the lights go out in the middle of a storm and stuff like that. And they're just trying to uncover this odd mystery. It's a very solid. It's on Netflix, so if you've got Netflix, it's effectively free. It's a very short film. It's 80 minutes and a really good kind of little thriller. Really quite enjoyed it. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Actually, I really thought it was a good film. Brian Cox they're American, so he's doing an American accent, and he's mostly okay. It slips here and there. But I thought it was quite effective, and all the acting was solid. There's only one kind of flaw. There's a girlfriend character in it who's like very underwritten, really. She doesn't hardly gets any screen time. But other than that, I thought it was a really solid film. And as I say, I'll be talking about it a bit more on another podcast, the United Nations of Horror podcast. But I'd definitely recommend it. Mm-hmm. Back to you. Have you done your?
Yeah, I've done all of mine.
Oh, okay, then I'll tell you. All right, then let's get up from the comfy chair and get on with it.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Get on with it.
Okay, so this is our intro into Hammer. We've got this list of movies we want to get through at some point. We're not going to rush, we're going to take our time like we often do. But the first one in the series is the Quatermass Experiment. Now, I have to mention, I have written a book about Quatermass, covering all of his sort of TV adventures, movies, radio, this, that, and the other, right? And I'll put a link to that book in the show notes. It's on a Kindle book. But essentially, Quatermass Experiment was the first venture into horror that Hammer did. Hammer, as a studio, were like, all they did is made like B-movie sort of pot boiler thrillers. There's a few decent ones, but mostly they weren't great. And they were kind of supported as a studio by the fact that there was laws in place in Britain that meant that any American movie had to have a British B movie picture, right? Which kind of kept the home industry going a bit. It was kind of law. But Hammer weren't rated that highly in terms of producing this kind of stuff. Anyway, the Quatermass came about because it was a series that was put on television in 1953, a few months after the Queen's coronation, believe it or not, the new Queen. And it had this masterstroke in it. It was a TV series, 6-parter, and had a masterstroke of setting the final part in Westminster Abbey. So even though they didn't actually film at Westminster Abbey, they used pictures and stuff to sort of recreate it.
I was going to ask if this was like a series, because a lot of the stuff they talk about seems to have like history behind it. So
yeah, it was a series on the TV on BBC, 1953. It's kind of hard to believe that this was 10 years before the first Doctor Who, so this is old TV, right? And they put on this like horror sci-fi show. And not only did they put on a horror sci-fi show, it was extremely successful. Apparently, this was shown on a Saturday night and pubs emptied because people wanted to go home and watch Quatermass. So some of the more enterprising publicans would wheel in a telly into the bar to keep the punters in, right? Which is a good idea, right? I mean, people like Quatermass a lot. So Hammer had this brilliant idea of actually saying, well, why don't we try making a film of it? And they did. They secured the rights and made the film, which is the one we're going to be talking about now. And this film, I have to mention, it essentially should be paid tribute to by horror aficionados world over, because it was so successful And Hammer was so enthused, Basically, they were going downhill, downhill, and downhill. They knew that they were going to fail as a studio, but this turned everything around for them. It was so successful and gave them like a shot of confidence that they immediately went out and negotiated the rights to Frankenstein and Dracula from Universal. Right, so you could basically say the entire Hammer sort of studio output, which was the horror output in the 60s for sure, the thing to watch, in the same way Universal was the horror output of the 30s and 40s, is down to this film.
Okay.
Now, one of the things was Quatermass was very successful on the TV in 1953. So when this came out, this film version of the story came out 2 years later. They obviously they strengthened it up a bit. It was a bit more, exploitative than the TV show. They could show stuff in this that they couldn't show on the TV screen. Man, there were queues around the block. And I think this was like the highest grossing film in the UK in 1955 as well.
Okay.
That's how successful it was. They did change a lot, though, because in the original TV series, he was kind of a British professor, kind of quite an earnest man. But they got Brian Donlevy, who was kind of only known for like being in like westerns in America, as Quatermass. So quite a change of character. And Nigel Neal, who wrote the original series, because he was still employed by the BBC, could not take part in any writing here. So other people adopted his story, and he was very critical of this film, and certainly of the way that Quatermass was portrayed, because not at all how he kind of envisaged Quatermass. I just wonder, what do you think of Brian Donlevy in this?
I quite enjoyed him.
It was quite good, wasn't it? He kind of is a bit sociopathic and driven.
I did. Have you ever seen House?
The Hugh Laurie one.
The Hugh Laurie show, yeah. He reminded me a lot of House.
That's a good analogy. I kind of see that completely. House is almost like a less... He's almost like a Sherlock figure, isn't he?
He's a less intense version of Quatermass.
Yeah. I can see that. That is a good analogy.
Because House is a dick, but he's kind of well-meaning. Quatermass is just literally walks into a room, and the first thing he says is, "I'm smarter than all of you."
Yeah.
So
he doesn't care, does he? He really doesn't care, and I kind of like him for that. The other thing about this sort of film is the rockets are kind of cool. I mean, they've got a very 50s vibe, but they look kind of cool. But they look an awful lot like the V2 rockets the Nazis used against like London and cities of the UK. So that must have had a not psychic, but a mental sort of flashback to some of the people watching this film, right? Let's go into some of the... I mean, firstly, we have the crash, don't we? We have like the couple walking down the thing and then the crash. What do you think of the sort of opening sequence with the rocket crashing and the fact that they can't, get to it? Did it work for you?
I think it was pretty cool. But
it was tense, wasn't it? It was tense.
Yeah. It was... yeah. It was a bit baffling that they couldn't just spray water at the rocket instead of like. I didn't understand the like quote unquote science behind that.
I think that was just a dramatic pretense to make sure they didn't open the rocket straight away. What they were saying is, if we do that, it'll turn to steam and it might. I don't know. I agree with you there. It doesn't make sense, does it? Right? They needed to cool it down, but they couldn't spray water on it. It was kind of weird. But we get this like it's a couple of quite interesting elements early on. It was a cheap film. You can kind of see it was cheap. And some of the quality of the film stock wasn't great, but there were some nice little touches in it. In many ways, it kind of recreated a few of the Universal approaches. There was a comedy woman in it, and stuff like that. But I like the way it started with them all in a car, huddled up in a tight space, and the car kind of rocking, and they're like talking in a really fast, clipped way, aren't they? Saying da 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 da. It was like, you better be all right, Quatermass. It was like it was kind of cool. It kept the tension, and the music I really liked. Did you like the music?
Yeah, that was quite fun.
That music, I think, was I'm not going to say Bernard Herrmann, James Bernard, I should say, who did an awful lot of music for Hammer. We're going to hear a lot of his music. I'm just double checking that because I could be actually wrong. I'm winging it a bit here. Let's have a look. Music by James Bernard. Yeah, okay. You kind of hear it, but it had a nice persistent ring. I find that a lot of his musical cues in this are almost like a bit like Bernard Herrmann's musical cues in Psycho.
Okay.
I felt that there was kind of similarities there in that kind of the use of choppy music to sort of create tension. It's kind of interesting. And he was using strings too, violins, as all that. I kind of liked it. And basically, they eventually open the rocket, don't they? And find, instead of 3 of them, there's only 1. And there's also this weird residue all over the rocket. So something bizarre's going on. The film slows up a little then, don't they? And they kind of get film stock and look at the...
It becomes like an actual investigation.
Yeah, it's almost like found footage, isn't it? It's like they're watching film of the rocket and the 3 men, and we see a weird flash, don't we? And then there's only 1 man and stuff like that. And there's something weird going on. And there's a plain old copper who says, he says something like, I'm a plain old Christian copper.
Yeah.
I don't quite
He's like, I'm a simple man, I believe in the Bible, sort of thing.
I'm a Bible man and all this. And Quatermass is like, he doesn't quite do that. But
he quite literally does that. So.
But he really has no time to sort of discuss all this. He just wants to know what's gone wrong with his rocket, really. He doesn't even seem that concerned about the people or anything, does he?
Yeah.
So there's all that. And then we see the Caroon, don't we, who's in a right state. Now, this Victor Caroon is played by an actor called Richard Wordsworth. What do you think of his performance?
I think he was okay, but the thing is, like, Quatermass kind of stole it, so...
Yeah, Byron Donlevy he's quite an imposing figure in this, and it works really well. I have to say, I consider him probably my favourite scientist of the 50s, other than Victor Frankenstein, Peter Cushing's Victor Frankenstein, who is elite. I know we haven't seen one yet, but, man, I really like Peter Cushing. We all know about Peter Cushing, but I have to say Donlevy's Quatermass really works for me. I can kind of see how someone who's been working on rocket science for years would just be this driven and sort of... He's almost Ahabby, isn't he?
Yeah.
In his way. That's the kind of character he is. I like Richard Wordsworth's performance a lot. We'll talk about it more as we go through some of the scenes, I think. But I think it's a good performance. It kind of reminded me in some ways of Boris Karloff's Frankenstein, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of there's definitely
that.
one scene which will come on which is really reminiscent of Frankenstein. But he gets in a hospital and he's in a bad way. His skin looks kind of all taut, like an old man's skin almost. But his wife, who I thought was a pretty poor turn, actually. She's like a woman doing an American accent or an American actress, but she wasn't a good actress, was she?
Nah.
She kind of wants to get him away from the hospital because she doesn't think he's been treated right, and she hires some like private detective who's this like I don't know. He's got a gift of the gab, ain't he? This guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun as a character. He goes and gets Victor out, but Victor has a go. Basically,
Victor melts him.
Say again?
He melts him.
Yeah, he's got this power to sort of suck the life force out of people. And it turns out he's kind of been melded with this weird alien entity thing while in the rocket. And they kind of start figuring that out, don't they, back in the lab. And he also sucks the life out of a cactus, which means he starts to take on sort of aspects of the cactus as well, doesn't he? He has that
it's strange.
Now, there's one scene where he gets out the hospital and his wife takes him into a car and they're just driving along, his wife's driving, and he's just looking at her. I thought that was a pretty spooky and effective scene.
Yeah, that was really unnerving.
Yeah,
So,
you just look at it, and she didn't realise anything was wrong, did she? She started smoking,
no.
but in the end, it kind of starts to move towards her, and she screams her head off, and he kind of.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's struggling with his human side, struggling with some other. Basically the alien side of himself, and he doesn't want to hurt her, but he's kind of driven to do something. But he just runs off, and then he's wandering around desert bomb site London, really.
Yeah.
And we get a little girl with a doll, don't we? Starts talking to her. Now that's the bit that reminded me of Frankenstein.
Yeah, that was. I was thinking, it's like, are they trying to do Frankenstein?
Yeah, and I think Wordsworth was quite good, actually. I thought it was it was good as that weird suffering man who was trying to sort of resist this urge to do things. Yeah, Victor. Yeah. And then he starts to kind of leave a trail, doesn't he? Actually, no.
Yeah,
first he goes
kind of like a slug. So.
Yeah, he goes to the zoo. He gets in the zoo.
And like absorbs a bunch of other animals. So.
Yeah, and. Isn't there one point they're talking about all these dead animals amongst us? Oh, it's natural causes or something like that. Says that. What? That's quite an effective scene. And I remember it being longer and more kind of graphic than it actually was. I just remember it. I think, I read a comic strip of it where there was much more artwork about the dead animals, and it's kind of melded with the film in my head. So when I watch the film, it's always I thought this scene was longer than it is, but he's basically sucked all the life out of all these different animals, which kind of suggests he might also take on aspects of those animals, right?
Yeah.
But he kind of becomes a weird old slug. In the meantime, they're kind of still investigating, but they find a bit of it, don't they? Bit of the thing, and take it back to the lab and start feeding mice to it, and it grows.
Yeah.
It was a bit alien-y.
Yeah.
The bit where it breaks out the cage.
Yeah.
It's a bit alien-y. And also there's a bit where he goes to a chemist, doesn't he? And the chemist's trying to help him, but then he sees with the arm and it's the right state, and he sucks the life out of the chemist. Did I surmise that he might have been trying to poison himself?
Yeah, perhaps.
That's more prominent. I've seen some of the original TV show because only the first 2 episodes are available. They're the only ones that were videotaped. The rest of them weren't recorded in any way. But I've read the scripts, and in the scripts, it's much more about, we think he was trying to poison himself. So why is he trying to kill himself and all this kind of stuff? So there's a hint of he just doesn't want to go.
Now I do have a question, because I'm reading the Wikipedia article on this, and there's some bits which are like very different from the film I watched.
Yeah, it is. Certainly the ending is completely different. Definitely.
Yeah.
But there's also there's more story, so there's kind of more stuff going on. And there's some goofy stuff in the TV. Yeah, the TV show's fairly primitive, but still kind of interesting. Obviously, a lot of people watched it. It was a very popular show. But Hammer kind of pruned a lot of it out and made it more filmic. TV is a different medium to film, so you got to be way more punchy with your scenes and stuff like that. And they kind of trimmed it down quite nicely. I thought quite nicely. I haven't mentioned this, but this is called Quatermass Experiment, and it's not EX, it's an X. It's just an X experiment. And Hammer particularly did that because the year before there was a French film that came out called Les Diaboliques, which is like a very good sort of mystery horror film. And that was famously given an X certificate because, it was so strong. But it did a roaring trade. And Hammer worked out that the X might actually bring in punters rather than put them off. So they specifically put a massive X on the poster and played that up. So that's why it's got that weird title, Experiment. And it worked. It worked. It was like people loved this film because they really liked the TV show and they wanted, it wasn't recorded, so it couldn't be repeated. So their only way of revisiting the story was to go see this film, right? So they basically did everything right to make this such a hit. Really, they got lucky, I think, as partly, but man, it all kind of worked out. So in the end, they follow the slug trail, and they kind of track it to. There's an outside broadcast about some bloke talking about Westminster Abbey like paintings, and they see the monster. What do you think of the monster?
The monster was weird because, like, it looked like just sort of a vegetation blob, for the most part. But then they do close-ups where it was clearly an octopus.
It was weirdly an octopus. Yeah, I thought that, and I was thinking, that's an octopus. But there's one point, it looks like it's on fire, and I'm thinking, did they set fire to an octopus here? Because that's a big grim.
I mean, they probably, it's more likely that they did, like,
special effects.
The mirror technique.
Yeah, that is more likely, because the beast wasn't like, the octopus wasn't like going mad, was it? It was just there, but on fire. So it did look like it. It looked like it was on fire, but its reaction wasn't what an animal would do if it was on fire, was it? So I suspect it was special effects. I hope so, anyway. So in the end, they kind of figure out what to do and divert most of London's power supply into the scaffolding it's on. The monster kind of looked goofy to me, I have to say.
Yeah.
It was a rubber monster, right? And a Godzilla kind of way.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. And then once they've electrocuted it, they're sort of saying, what we're going to... Yeah, we see Quatermass marching in, having a look and marching out again. And it's very filmed that way, that it's focused on Quatermass, isn't it?
Yeah.
The ending. And at one point they're saying, what are we going to do now? He goes, launch another rocket, and just marches off.
Yeah.
And it ends.
Well, no, he says something much more ominous than that. They ask him what we're going to do, and he says, we're going to start again.
Yeah,
and then just walk. The whole last shot reminded me of the bit in... It reminded me of The Exorcist, where the priest walks up to the house. It's just him walking down the middle of the street,
and it just ends, right?
Yeah, and that was I'm kind of sold for the rest of the series now.
Yeah,
the rest of it's a bit. He's funny, but he wasn't enough to carry the film.
Yeah.
So
It's cool, right? It's cool. And we also, I didn't mention it, there's a bit where a drunken woman comes into the police station and reports she saw something weird going up the wall. And they tell her it wasn't one of the gin goblins, and she faints. Kind of did make me laugh. And
that was really funny.
That felt like a callback to the woman in Bride of Frankenstein, the monster and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or the woman who was run the boarding house with the invisible man. It was that kind of vibe. Which I think worked well. So there was almost like a bit of a handover there between Hammer and Universal and Hammer to me. Now, it could have been possible, this was a sci-fi horror, right? And they did, and the next few films we're going to watch are going to be sci-fi horror. But they also got the rights to Frankenstein, and that proved to be even more successful. And it's really with their first sort of foray into Gothic horror with Curse of Frankenstein that they kind of completely changed tack and went down the Gothic horror route rather than the sci-fi horror, and proved to be enormously successful. They did revisit sci-fi a few times, but really they became more like a Gothic horror sort of house, and famously so. I mean, it was the era of Hammer in the same way, as I said, the 30s was the era of Universal, so that was kind of cool. What's your overall thoughts on this?
I thought it was quite good, and I can see how it was so popular back then. So
yeah, it was something different and really quite successful for Hammer.
Yeah. I can see how it became a series. I have a thing with a lot of big series like Mad Max. I can't see how from the first one it got a series. I don't think Mad Max 1 I don't think it's very good, but Mad Max 2 is really good. This one I really enjoyed. Yeah. So that's a change.
I like all of the Quatermass films, I have to say, and we will be getting to two fairly quickly in this series. But the third one was quite a bit later, like a decade later. So it'll be a while before we get to Quatermass and the Pit. But this is a solid series, and Quatermass 2 is also Brian Donlevy. Just so you know.
Okay.
Just so you know, Don Levy was kind of known as a drunk at this point, but he was like he was also a pro, so his drunkenness never affected his work, which was kind of interesting. He was a functioning alcoholic in effect, but he always had a drink around apparently. So there was that. But it didn't affect the work. I really liked it. I've been a big fan of Quatermass forever, really, and I came to it first through the films. And then got back to the TV shows and stuff.
Oh my God, he was...
Sorry, go on.
He was in the... in like old Godzilla films, the Americans would like film extra stuff.
Yeah.
He was in one of the Gamera films.
I can believe it. Yeah. He was quite a presence, but he was typically a bad guy or a heavy in westerns. That was what he did a lot of. I've seen old films with him and James Stewart, for example. And it was kind of interesting they brought him in. This also, one of the reasons this was worked so well for Hammer was this was the first movie they managed to sell to the American audience. Yeah. They tried to sell their
Creeping Unknown,
and it was called The Creeping Unknown because no one knew what Quatermass means. What that was all about. So it was kind of there was that aspect to it. This led Hammer went straight into a sequel mode for this, given its success, and they wrote a script, showed it to Nigel Neal, and Nigel Neal was famously stroppy, right? He just rejected it out of hand and said, that's not Quatermass, you're not doing that. But they repurposed it with a different character, and it became the film called X the Unknown. They reused the X thing. We're going to be doing that. We're going to be doing it next in the horror. It's the next one to do because it's the next horror film they made. So I'd be interested to see what you think of that. And they've changed the character quite considerably in that, so I'd be interested to see what you think of it. And then the year after, they went into Quatermass 2. Now, interestingly, that was a big hit as well, but Hammer had an even bigger hit that year with Curse of Frankenstein, and that's what changed things. They went to colour, they went to gothic horror, they kind of hit all the strides, they hit the stride pretty much.
Well, they're not colour for Quatermass 2?
No, it's black and white again.
All right.
Yeah, Quatermass is kind of interesting because it's like, it's British sci-fi. As opposed to a lot of American sci-fi was like gee-whiz, metal robots, shiny metal spaceships.
Lost in Space.
Yeah, it was kind of... Lost in Space was kind of riffing on that. However, there were some darker... if you think of things like Invasion of the Body Snatchers... or there's a few others that are kind of much, The Day the Earth Stood Still is much more thoughtful sci-fi that is closer to Quatermass than all the ray gun stuff. And then if you contrast it with Japanese sci-fi, that's properly bonkers. The British sci-fi is much more low-key and sort of tense. And this was a good one. Anyway, I think we've talked enough about Quatermass Xperiment. Any final thoughts?
No, not really.
I want to tell you one contemporary review of this film in the British press that always makes me laugh, which is, "This is the best and nastiest horror film I've seen since the war. How jolly that is also British." That makes me laugh. What would you give it out of 10?
I'd give this an 8. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think it's a solid film. I think it's one of my favourite sci-fi horrors from the 50s. For me, the other Quatermass is also very high, but probably I'm a really big fan of The Incredible Shrinking Man, so, which is something else completely, but I'm a big fan of that. But to me, this is like top-tier horror sci-fi. For the 50s, so I'd give it a 9. So next time we come back to Hammer, it will be X the Unknown, so it'd be interesting to keep, see what they did with what was intended to be a sequel to this, but they're to repurpose because Nigel Neal just would not play ball about letting Quatermass appear in it, so it's kind of cool. So glad you enjoyed this one. I wasn't sure because there were some slow patches, and it does look very dated, but I think it's still quite effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay then. So bye from me.
Bye.
We like to hear from our listeners at The Good, The Bad and The Odd, so if you have any thoughts on this week's topic or anything else movie or TV related, drop us a line at info@thegoodthebadandtheodd.com. Written or MP3 attached, we like both. We're available on Stitcher, iTunes and as an RSS feed. Just go to www.thegoodthebadandtheodd.com for links to these. Also, feel free to come chat with us by joining our Facebook group on www.facebook.com/groups/The Good, The Bad and The Odd, all as one word. Thanks for listening, and until next time on The Good, The Bad and The Odd.